There was a time when I had nothing, no wealth, no recognition, no certainty, but I had one thing no one could take from me: the belief that I could become more. I studied the greatest minds of my time. I watched their patterns, their habits, their decisions. And what I discovered was simple: success is never an accident. It is a result, a natural consequence of how you choose to live. The world doesn't hand you what you want, it reflects who you are. So I became obsessed with becoming. I knew that if I could align my thoughts, my words, and my behavior with the life I envisioned, then reality would catch up. So I started, quietly, relentlessly. I spoke like someone who had already arrived. I walked like I belonged, not out of arrogance, but alignment. Each morning before the world had a chance to influence me, I influenced myself. I spoke words of power. I reminded myself who I was and where I was going. I repeated my vision out loud, not to impress others, but to impress it into my subconscious. And the more I repeated it, the more it became familiar. Familiar became believable. Belief became identity. I didn't chase every idea. I chose a direction and moved with discipline. You see, energy scattered is wasted, but energy focused, that builds empires. I kept my goals in front of me. I said no to distractions, not because they were bad, but because they weren't aligned. And when you truly decide who you are, decision becomes simple. You don't need motivatio. There were days when doubt knocked hard, but I didn't answer with fear. I answered with action. I learned early on that action cures hesitation, so I made progress, even when it was messy. I acted before I felt ready, because readiness isn't a feeling, it's a decision. And when I moved, life moved with me. Doors opened not because I waited, but because I knocked. I kept learning, not just to collect knowledge, but to sharpen myself. I studied people, I studied purpose. I didn't wait for wisdom to find me, I hunted it. And when I found something that worked, I applied it with urgency. You don't need to know everything. You just need to use what you know, consistently. That's how small seeds become extraordinary results. It was never about proving others wrong. It was about proving myself right. I stopped arguing with doubt. I stopped explaining my dream. I just lived it. I put in the work, quietly, daily, and before long, the results spoke for me. If you keep showing up with excellence, the world eventually takes notice, but by then you've already outgrown the need for applause. Now pause and look at yourself, not at what's missing, but at what's possible. You already have the raw material for greatness. The real question is, will you shape it? Go to the comments and write, "I've already started becoming." Because the truth is, if you've listened this far, the shift has already begun. Let's keep walking together, one focused thought at a time. You don't need a perfect plan. You need motion. I've seen more dreams die waiting on ideal conditions than I've seen fail from bold attempts. I moved with what I had. I refined on the journey. Action teaches you more than theory ever will. Start before you're certain. Act while others hesitate. Progress isn't found in waiting. It's born in doing. Momentum is your greatest ally. I didn't count my failures. I studied them. Every setback taught me something about myself, not about what I lacked, but about what I needed to strengthen. The man who learns from failure is never defeated. He's simply in training. I treated obstacles as invitations, not to quit, but to go deeper, to ask better questions, to rise stronger than I was before I fell. Success doesn't shout, it whispers. It shows up in the small, invisible choices when no one's watching. I trained myself to win in the quiet, the discipline to show up when it's boring, the strength to stay focused when results don't come. That's where real power lives, not in what people see, but in the integrity you build when no one else is looking. There's a moment in every journey when everything inside you wants to stop, when your mind says, maybe it's not for me. I've been there. And every time I answered that voice with one more step. You don't need to leap forward, you just need to refuse to step back. The mind will follow where the body leads. Keep moving forward, even if all you can manage is an inch. I protected my energy like it was treasure, because it is. Who you listen to, what you watch, what you believe, these things shape you. I stopped arguing with people who didn't share my vision. I stopped explaining my path to those who never walked it. Not out of pride, but out of purpose. You are not for everyone. You are for your calling. Don't water yourself down to fit. Each morning I recommitted. I didn't rely on yesterday's motivation. I gave today a fresh promise. That's how you build habits that last. You don't need to feel like it. You need to choose it. Again and again. I told myself, show up, no matter what. And I did. Not because it was easy, but because the alternative was regret. And I had no room left for that in my life. I used my imagination like a builder uses a blueprint. I pictured the life I wanted, vividly, repeatedly, emotionally. I rehearsed my future until it felt familiar, until my present had no choice but to catch up. The mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's repeated, so I fed it the image of my best self. And then I began to become it. Now take a moment and declare it. I am already in motion. Type it in the comments. Let it anchor your progress. This is no longer about goals. It's about identity. When you align your actions with who you say you are, results become inevitable. Don't chase your future. Live like it's already unfolding, because if you're listening right now, you're already on the path. It's not enough to dream. The world is full of dreamers, but the ones who rise are those who follow their vision with relentless action. I didn't just sit and visualize, I got up and built. While others talked about what they would do, I moved. Quietly, purposefully. You don't need to announce your greatness, just walk in it and let the results make the noise. Every time I honored a promise I made to myself, I grew stronger. Integrity isn't just about what you say to others, it's what you say to you. When I told myself I would show up, I did. Even when I was tired, even when no one noticed. That self-trust compounds, and soon you no longer need motivation because your word is enough. That is personal power. I simplified my life. I stopped filling my calendar with distractions, disguised as obligations. I focused on what mattered. I learned to say no to everything that didn't move me forward. Not because I was cold, but because I was clear. You can either please everyone or fulfill your purpose. You can't do both. Choose, and then stand firm in that choice. There's a quiet strength that comes when you no longer rush. I stopped chasing everything. I focused on the few things that aligned with my vision. I moved with intention, not urgency. Because success doesn't reward the frantic, it rewards the focused. I became a student of discipline, of depth, of mastery, and in that stillness I found momentum. I wasn't trying to be impressive, I was trying to be effective. And that meant doing the work no one sees, the repetition, the study, the sacrifice. People asked how I became so confident. The truth? I earned it in the dark. I earned it by keeping my promises in silence. Confidence isn't born, it's built, and you build it by showing up when it's hardest to. You'll be tempted to compare. Don't. What someone else has doesn't diminish what's possible for you. I stopped measuring my progress by someone else's timeline. I measured it by one thing. Did I grow today? Did I act in alignment with who I'm becoming? That's the standard. And when you honor that daily, you win, quietly, powerfully, permanently. There were moments when no one clapped, when no one noticed, but I kept going. Because I wasn't working for applause, I was working for alignment, for legacy, for the quiet knowing that I had become the man I promised myself I would be. That's wealth. Not the money, not the status, but the identity that can't be shaken. That's what lasts. Now stop and own it. You're further than you were yesterday. Go to the comments and type, "I'm not chasing, I'm becoming." Let it be your reminder when doubt shows up. When it gets hard, when no one's watching, say it again and again. Because your repetition builds your rhythm, and your rhythm becomes your reality. I used to think I needed more time, more connections, more money, but what I really needed was more consistency. The moment I committed to showing up, regardless of the mood, the noise, or the outcome, everything changed. I no longer waited to feel ready. I decided to be ready, and that simple shift created a new version of me, one that could no longer be ignored. There is power in simplicity. I stopped chasing complexity and started trusting structure. Simple things done daily build empires. A clear mind, a focused morning, a list of actions, a refusal to quit. That's all I needed. While others burned out trying to do everything, I got better at doing the right things, repeatedly. That's how wealth starts, quietly, consistently. I didn't ask the world to trust me. I became someone trustworthy. I didn't demand opportunity. I prepared for it. I didn't beg for success. I behaved like it was mine. And little by little, my reality bent to meet my conviction. That's what happens when your actions are louder than your ambitions. You don't just attract what you want, you embody it. I trained my mind like a warrior, not with noise, but with focus. I guarded my thoughts, I questioned my doubts, I rewrote the stories that held me small. Most people let their thoughts lead them. I decided to lead mine. Every time a voice said, "You can't," I replied, "Watch me." Over time, that voice got quieter and mine got stronger. You won't always see the results right away, and that's where most give up. But I knew, just because I couldn't see it didn't mean it wasn't working. Growth is like planting. There's always progress underground before anything breaks the surface. I kept watering, I kept showing up, and one day, the harvest came. Not as a surprise, but as a result. People often asked how I stayed motivated. But I wasn't chasing motivation, I was chasing mastery. I didn't rely on emotion, I relied on discipline. And discipline became a habit, a part of who I was. And the more I lived that way, the more natural it felt. Motivation fades, but identity endures, and I built mine through repetition, not inspiration alone. Every time I chose discomfort over convenience, I grew. Every time I leaned into the work instead of hiding from it, I became more. And slowly, the gap between who I was and who I wanted to be began to close. Not because I was lucky, but because I was willing. Willing to keep going, willing to believe, willing to evolve. And that willingness created momentum. So stop measuring your life by what you haven't done yet. Start honoring what you're already becoming. Go to the comments and type, "This is who I am now." Say it until it's no longer a statement. It's a truth. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. Just keep walking in alignment, one step, one choice, one victory at a time. When I began living like the man I envisioned, the world started to respond. Not immediately, but unmistakably. People could feel it in how I spoke, how I carried myself, how I entered a room. That shift didn't come from ego, it came from embodiment. I stopped pretending to be successful. I started behaving like success was already mine. And eventually, it was. The mind is a mirror. Reflect weak thoughts, and life reflects weak results, but reflect belief, discipline, and clarity, and watch what life hands you. I trained my mind daily. I filtered what entered it. I challenged thoughts that didn't serve me. You are not your doubts. You are not your fears. You are the voice that chooses what stays and what goes. Choose wisely. I stopped feeding distraction. I stopped giving my time to anything that didn't fuel my vision. That wasn't selfish, that was sacred. My time became a temple. I guarded it, honored it, used it well. Because time is the only resource you can never get back. Spend it on what builds you, on what frees you, on what calls you higher. That's how you move from busy to powerful. There's a strength you earn by being consistent when no one claps. A confidence that grows when you finish what you started. Without praise, without attention. That's how character is forged, in the quiet, in the unnoticed. But don't mistake silence for insignificance. Some of your greatest breakthroughs will happen when no one's watching, especially you. You'll want to quit. You'll question the process, but if you keep showing up, something changes, not just outside, but inside. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to believe that maybe, just maybe, this version of you isn't a dream. It's your destiny. And the moment you believe that, your habits begin to shift. Not because you must, but because it's who you are now. Every room I entered, I did so with the energy of someone who belonged there, even when I was unknown, even when I had nothing, because I knew the world often treats you according to how you treat yourself. I refused to shrink. I refused to wait for permission. And in doing so, I gave others the courage to rise too. Your posture can be someone else's inspiration. I didn't become who I am by chance. I became him by choice, over and over again. And not just when it was easy, but especially when it wasn't. That's when identity is solidified in the middle of resistance. You don't grow by avoiding difficulty. You grow by walking through it. With your head high, your steps firm, and your focus unshaken. So now I ask you, are you showing up like the version of you say you want to be? If not, when will you start? Go to the comments and write, "I act like it's already mine." That's how it begins. With a declaration, with a decision, with the daily discipline to walk in alignment until your future becomes your present. And when that day comes, it won't surprise you. You'll be ready. I realized something powerful the day I stopped chasing outcomes and started mastering the process. It was no longer about how fast I could win. It was about how deeply I could grow. Because when you grow deep, your results grow tall. I planted roots in discipline, in faith, in repetition, and over time those roots produced a life so steady, even storms couldn't shake it. I built in silence. While others showed off, I sharpened. While they doubted, I declared, not to them, but to myself. Every small action was a vote for the person I was becoming, and every time I honored that vision, I gained ground. You don't need the world to see you rising. Rise anyway. The harvest always comes. But first, you must be faithful in the seed phase. The world doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to who you are when no one's watching. I made decisions as if my future depended on them, because it did. I didn't wait for signs. I became the signal. I didn't hope things would change. I changed, and the world adjusted. If you live with alignment long enough, reality has no choice but to reflect it. There is no magic, only the compounded power of habits done with intention. I didn't build everything in a week or even a year, but every page I wrote, every promise I kept, every early morning I honored, it all added up, slowly at first. Then suddenly, that's how success appears, invisible until it's undeniable. Don't rush it. Just don't stop. I gave up the need to be understood. Not everyone will get your vision. Not everyone will support your growth. And that's okay. Your journey is not a group project. It's a personal contract. With your purpose, your discipline, your destiny, walk it with courage, even when you're walking alone, especially then, because that's when your voice gets louder. I made peace with discomfort. I welcomed it, actually, because every time I leaned into it, I found a new level of strength I didn't know I had. Pain became a teacher, resistance became a mirror, and discipline became my best friend. Most avoid the fire. I walked through it, and on the other side, I found a version of myself that didn't just survive, but led. I stopped waiting for life to slow down and decided to speed up my commitment. I stopped negotiating with fear. I told it to take a seat, because nothing great is built in hesitation. You rise when your action gets louder than your anxiety. You win when your decisions overpower your distractions. That's what changed my life. Not noise, but intention. Now go to the comments and type, "I lead myself first," because that's where real leadership begins, not in leading others, but in mastering your own movement. And if you've been following every word up to here, then you've already started. You're not chasing success anymore. You're becoming the kind of person success is drawn to. Every time I felt like quitting, I reminded myself why I started. I didn't begin this journey for applause. I began because I refused to live beneath my potential, and that refusal became my fuel. Even when the vision got blurry, even when the path got heavy, I tightened my grip and moved forward, not out of ease, but out of principle. I wasn't chasing a dream. I was fulfilling a responsibility. People say success changes you. They're wrong. It reveals you. When the results started to show, I wasn't surprised. I was prepared. I had become the man long before the world noticed. That's the secret. Embody the identity before the outcome. I trained my thoughts, I sculpted my discipline, and when the opportunities came, I was ready. Not lucky, ready. I stopped asking for certainty. I started asking for strength, because nothing is guaranteed, but everything is possible when you show up with the right spirit. I walked into unknowns with my head high, not because I had all the answers, but because I had done the inner work. Confidence is not a personality trait. It's the evidence of promises kept in private. My vision became my compass. I didn't need motivation, I had direction. Even on the hard days, I moved because I knew where I was going. And that movement kept me from drowning in doubt. You can't control every wave, but you can keep rowing. And the ones who reach the shore aren't the ones with the calmest waters, they're the ones who never stopped paddling. There is a rhythm to progress, a beat that begins to carry you once you've shown up long enough. That rhythm replaces hesitation. It quiets fear. It creates flow. And the only way to find it is by honoring the process. I stopped interrupting my progress with excuses. I stopped restarting. I stayed in motion, and the rhythm found me. That's when everything changed. You already have enough to begin. You've always had it. The problem is never the lack of tools, it's the lack of trust. Trust in your voice. Trust in your path. Trust that who you're becoming is worth the work. I didn't wait for someone to confirm my potential. I acted like it was true, and eventually it became undeniable, even to those who never believed in me. I practiced showing up like the version of me that I respected, not the one others expected, but the one I admired. The one with quiet confidence, with focused energy, with a mission that made him unshakable. And when I lived that way long enough, I didn't need to pretend. That version became who I was, not through force, but through alignment. Now go to the comments and declare, I move with purpose now. Let that phrase be your reminder. You're not here by accident. You've stayed through this journey for a reason. That reason lives inside you, and it's waiting to be honored. Purpose doesn't need permission. It only needs commitment. Speak it, walk it, and the results will follow. The moment I stopped performing for approval and started living in alignment, my path got clearer. I didn't need the spotlight. I needed direction, and once I had it, I moved like a man who knew exactly where he was going. That kind of presence doesn't shout, it radiates, and people notice, not because you ask for attention, but because you walk with intention. I remember the day I finally understood that wealth wasn't just a result, it was a rhythm, a way of thinking, a way of showing up again and again, even when the results weren't visible yet. That rhythm created gravity. Opportunities began to orbit my energy, not because I was chasing them, but because I had become someone worth finding. When the noise around me got louder, I got quieter. I stopped explaining myself. I stopped trying to convince people, because real conviction doesn't need validation. It stands tall on its own. And once you have that, you become dangerous. Not to others, but to your excuses, your fears, your limitations. They can't survive where you're going. The world tried to define me, told me who I was, what I could have, how far I could go, but I chose to define myself, not by where I was, but by where I was going. That decision gave me power, power to rise above my past, to walk with dignity in my present, and to create a future that once felt impossible. That's the freedom success gives you. Identity by choice. Every time I looked in the mirror, I didn't ask, "Am I there yet?" I asked, "Am I moving with honor?" Because that was my standard, not perfection, not applause, just integrity. And the more I lived by that, the stronger I became. I trusted my reflection, not because I had everything, but because I had earned who I saw looking back. If you want to change your life, change how you speak to yourself. I stopped calling myself broken. I stopped repeating the stories that kept me small, and I started using my voice to create. I spoke power, discipline, vision, not because I was pretending, but because I was practicing. And practice, when done with belief, becomes permanent. Some days you'll move mountains. Some days you'll barely move an inch. Both matter. What matters most is that you don't stop, because forward is forward. Progress compounds in the unseen, in the quiet, in the faithful. And one day, the world will ask how you did it, and all you'll be able to say is, "I kept going," long after it stopped being easy. Pause and breathe. You're not who you were when you started this. That alone is proof you're evolving. Go to the comments and write, "I'm walking in alignment now." Let that truth settle. Let it shape how you end this day, because you're not just watching a video, you're participating in your own transformation. One habit, one thought, one choice at a time. You don't become wealthy by accident. You become wealthy by design. Not just in your bank account, but in your thoughts, your standards, your behaviors. I treated each hour as sacred. I treated each conversation as seed. I didn't waste my time. I planted it. And when you plant your time in the soil of purpose, the harvest always comes. Always. My environment didn't always match my vision, but I never let it define me. I learned to carry the atmosphere I needed. When the room was heavy, I brought clarity. When the path was dark, I brought fire. Because the world outside you can only dominate you if the world inside you is weak. Strength isn't volume, it's presence, and presence is built in silence. The man I became didn't appear overnight. He was built in the repetition, in the rejection, in the moments no one saw. I gave my best when it felt like no one cared, and that's where my strength was born, not from applause, but from alignment. The quiet power of doing what's right, consistently, until it becomes who you are. I stopped chasing balance, and I started chasing alignment. I didn't need my life to be evenly distributed. I needed it to be fully aligned. My thoughts aligned with my words aligned with my actions. And over time, my reality aligned with my identity. That kind of clarity cuts through chaos. And once I found it, I never went back to fragmentation again. I never waited for permission. I didn't need the gatekeeper to say go. I became my own green light. I didn't just ask, "Is this possible?" I asked, "Who do I need to become for this to be inevitable?" That shift in question opened every door, because success isn't a place you reach, it's a person you become, and that person already lives inside you. You'll be misunderstood, you'll be doubted, but none of that matters when you're rooted in who you are. I stopped expecting the world to believe in me before I did. I believed first, I behaved first, I became first, and then the world adjusted. It always does. Because people can doubt your words, but they can't ignore your embodiment. I don't teach theory, I teach experience. What I lived, what I bled for, what I built through fire and faith. And if there's one thing I know, it's this. Success is not found in intensity, it's found in consistency, daily choices, quiet victories, repetition with direction. You don't need to be extraordinary, you just need to be committed beyond convenience. So pause right here and type in the comments, "I'm living this now." Let your mind hear your voice declare it. Let your body respond with action. Because this isn't a someday vision anymore. It's today. It's now. You've already shifted something inside, and that shift is the beginning of everything new. You don't rise by waiting. You rise by deciding, and I decided long ago that I would never again move like someone waiting for permission. I walked like my vision was already here. I spoke like my breakthrough had already come. That energy, that posture, it changed how the world responded to me. Because when you move with certainty, life starts moving with you. I began treating each day like a performance review for my own destiny, not with pressure, but with presence. I asked, did I move with excellence today? Did I lead myself well? And if I didn't, I adjusted, not next month, but right then. Because change doesn't begin with a new year. It begins with a new standard, and I raised mine until the old me couldn't survive. I replaced doubt with data. I didn't wait to feel worthy. I built evidence of my worth through action. I did the work. I stayed consistent. I created proof. And that proof silenced the noise. Not because I argued louder, but because my results spoke for me. That's how you quiet your fears, not with force, but with fruit. Let your consistency carry the message. I didn't live for motivation. I lived by discipline. Motivation is a spark, but discipline is the firewood. It's what keeps you warm in the cold seasons. It's what keeps you walking when progress is invisible. And I built that discipline one small decision at a time. Don't wait to feel strong. Act like you are. And eventually, you will be. My morning routine wasn't optional. It was sacred. I didn't start my day with distraction. I started with intention, with silence, with clarity. I fed my mind with direction before the world could feed it confusion. And that gave me an edge. Because if you win the first hour, you win the day. And if you win enough days, you win your life. I said no more than I said yes. Not because I didn't care, but because I cared deeply about the right things. I wasn't busy. I was focused. I didn't chase every opportunity. I chased alignment. And that made all the difference. You don't build an extraordinary life by doing everything. You build it by doing the essential things extraordinarily well. I started seeing time as currency. Every minute spent without purpose was a withdrawal from my potential. So I stopped wasting it. I invested it. In books, in stillness, in mastery. You don't need more time. You need more clarity. When you know what matters, there's always enough time. It's not about managing hours. It's about managing direction. Go to the comments and write, I lead my time with intention. Let this be your new way of showing up. No more rushing, no more reacting. You are the architect of your day, the author of your effort, and the master of your minutes. That shift alone can multiply your results, because time, when honored, rewards you beyond measure. There came a point where I stopped being interested in success and became committed to it. Interest is passive. Commitment is personal. It lives in how you speak, how you think, how you act when no one's clapping. I didn't just want a better life, I required it. And that standard changed how I showed up. When you require more from yourself, you attract more from life. I no longer tried to be everything for everyone. I chose to be everything for the future version of me. I asked, what does he expect from me today? That version, the one with clarity, peace, wealth, purpose, he became my standard, my benchmark, my mirror. And every time I honored him, I grew. Because identity isn't found, it's built, choice by choice. I turned my pain into fuel. Every disappointment became a spark. Every failure became a forge. I didn't ignore the struggle. I used it, not to make excuses, but to build endurance. And that endurance made me dangerous to doubt. I knew what it felt like to fall, but I also knew how to rise. That knowledge gave me quiet confidence, and quiet confidence builds empires. My definition of wealth changed. It wasn't just money. It was peace. It was integrity. It was knowing I had become the kind of man I once looked up to. That kind of wealth doesn't crash with markets. It doesn't vanish with trends. It's unshakable because it's internal. Build from within and you'll never worry about what the world tries to take. I stopped waiting for the right season to begin. I made the season right by how I showed up. I didn't let the world decide when I would grow. I decided. I didn't need better circumstances. I needed better commitment. And when I aligned my action with that commitment, everything else adjusted. Success doesn't wait for you, but it does respond when you move. I never relied on inspiration alone. I built systems that served me even when I wasn't inspired. My schedule wasn't a suggestion. It was a contract. My word wasn't casual. It was law. And when I lived that way long enough, discipline became natural. It felt less like pressure and more like peace because I trusted myself, and that trust changed everything. I didn't just prepare for opportunity, I became opportunity. People wanted to work with me not because I was loud, but because I was locked in. I carried clarity, I carried conviction, I showed up with intention and followed through with excellence. You don't need to chase if you can attract, and attraction comes from energy that's grounded in purpose. Now write this in the comments. I carry wealth within me. Let that be your reminder, because the truth is, you already do. Every word, every action, every thought is a deposit. You are building something sacred, powerful, unstoppable. And the more you align with that truth, the more the world begins to reflect it back. I stopped calling it a dream and started calling it a decision. Dreams can fade, decisions shape reality. And when I made the decision to live in alignment with success, everything changed. I didn't wait for proof. I became the proof. I didn't need to convince anyone. I moved with quiet certainty, and that was enough because the decision had already been made. I didn't fear the unknown. I feared staying the same. And that fear kept me moving when comfort tried to pull me back. Growth doesn't feel good at first, it feels unfamiliar. But unfamiliar isn't unsafe, it's simply unpracticed. And once I learned that, I leaned into discomfort, because every version of me I respected lived just beyond what felt easy. There's a voice inside that gets louder the more you honor it. That voice isn't ego, it's truth, the part of you that knows you were made for more. I stopped silencing that voice to fit in. I started listening to it until it became my compass. That inner knowing, that inner alignment, that's your real guide. Follow it, even when it takes you off the popular path. The more I grew, the less I needed to be understood. I stopped defending my ambition. I stopped explaining my standards. I just lived them. And in that silence, something powerful happened. The right people showed up, the right doors opened, and the noise that once distracted me faded. Peace replaced approval, and peace became my new proof of alignment. Success, for me, wasn't an explosion. It was a rhythm, a pulse, a cadence of consistency that I practiced daily. I didn't try to leap. I walked. One step, then another. Over time, that walk became a march. That march became momentum. And that momentum became a movement. You don't need fireworks, you need flow. Flow only comes through discipline. I didn't look for shortcuts, I looked for strength. The long road gave me something the fast one never could, depth. And depth is what carries you when the winds of life blow hard. It roots you, it anchors you, it makes your growth unshakable. If you're walking a hard path right now, don't quit. You're not being punished, you're being prepared. I started seeing resistance as confirmation. If it was hard, it meant I was close to something valuable. So instead of avoiding it, I leaned in. I asked better questions. I got more curious. Resistance didn't mean I was off track. It meant I was moving in a direction worth pursuing. Let resistance sharpen you. Let it remind you that what you're doing matters. Now pause and write in the comments, I don't chase, I align. Let that truth guide how you walk from this moment on. You don't need to force what belongs to you. You simply need to become aligned with it. And once you do, you'll realize success was never far away. It was always waiting for you to become ready. I stopped rushing the process. I trusted it. I trusted that every step mattered, that even the ones that felt small or slow were part of the build. There's no wasted motion when you're aligned with purpose. Every quiet hour, every unnoticed effort, every internal shift, it's all part of the design, so walk with patience, walk with faith, but keep walking. Not everyone who starts with you will finish with you, and that's okay. Growth creates distance. It's not rejection, it's refinement. I learned to bless those who left and honor those who stayed. I didn't carry bitterness, I carried vision. And that vision became the magnet for who and what was meant for me. You don't need the crowd, you need the core. There's something sacred about showing up for yourself, not for applause, not for recognition, just for you. I made a promise to become someone I respected, and every day I kept it. That's how you build self-worth, not by chasing approval, but by honoring the agreements you make with your own soul. That's where real confidence is born. I stopped living in reaction. I started living by design. I took back control, not of everything around me, but of everything within me. My thoughts, my standards, my rhythm. That shift gave me peace. That peace gave me power. And with that power, I became unshakable. Because when you lead yourself from within, the outside world loses its control over you. Most people want results without transformation, but transformation is the real reward. It's who you become that makes the success sustainable. I didn't just want to win, I wanted to carry the wisdom that would keep me grounded when I did. So I welcomed the process. I embraced the fire, because fire doesn't destroy the gold, it reveals it. I treated my habits like bricks. Each action was another stone in the foundation of who I was becoming. I didn't need to go fast, I needed to go firm. And with each repetition, the identity solidified. I no longer needed to hype myself up. I had built a rhythm I could trust, a structure I could stand on. That's what habits do. They build the house before the world sees it. I learned that it's not about being the loudest in the room. It's about being the clearest. I didn't need volume. I needed vision. And when that vision was strong, my presence became enough. People felt it before I spoke. And when I did speak, it wasn't to impress, it was to impact. That's the energy you earn when you live aligned with who you were created to be. Now take a deep breath. Let this truth settle. You're not chasing greatness, you're already living it. Go to the comments and type, "This is who I am now," because it is. And if you keep showing up like this, there will come a day when people ask you how you changed your life. And all you'll say is, "I started living like it was already mine." I didn't just want wealth, I wanted freedom. Freedom of mind, freedom of spirit. Freedom to wake up and know I was living with intention. That kind of freedom doesn't come from money alone. It comes from becoming someone who honors their own path. Every day I lived in alignment. I got richer, even before the world could see it. That's the wealth no one can take. There is a power that grows inside you when you follow through. When your actions echo your words, that's when you become magnetic. Not because of tricks or tactics, but because you're real. I didn't have to sell people on my vision. They felt it. That's what happens when you stop trying to impress and start becoming undeniable. Most people live as a reaction. I chose to live as a statement of faith, of courage, of resilience. And each day, I renewed that statement by how I showed up. The world may not applaud consistency, but it always rewards it. You may not see the win right away, but it's coming, because when you move with truth, truth always returns to you. Every time I said yes to discipline, I said no to regret. I said no to living beneath my calling, no to being owned by my feelings, no to wasting the one life I had. That yes wasn't always easy, but it was worth it. And every day I said it, my confidence grew stronger. You don't need to win the world overnight. You just need to win yourself daily. The real battle was never outside of me, it was within. And once I won that battle, nothing outside had the power to shake me. I had mastered the terrain of my thoughts, my emotions, my choices, and in that mastery, I found peace. A peace not based on ease, but on identity. A peace that said, I know who I am, I know where I'm going, and I will not be moved. People often asked, what's the secret? And I'd smile. Because the truth is, there is no secret. There is only choice, and repetition, and refusal to quit. There's no magic button, only sacred discipline, daily alignment, focused living. You're not missing anything. You simply haven't committed fully yet. But once you do, you'll realize you were always enough. You were always the answer. You just forgot to look within. Everything you seek is already inside, waiting for your permission to rise. I gave myself that permission, and with it came the clarity, the strength, the success. I didn't find it in a book or a course. I found it in the silence of commitment. That's where you find it too. Go within, stay there, build from there. Now write it boldly in the comments. I am the key, not luck, not timing, you. You are the source of the next chapter, not because it will be easy, but because you've decided it will be worth it. And when that decision becomes your identity, your life will never be the same again. You are not becoming any more. You have arrived. You don't need more time. You need more alignment. You need more courage to act on what you already know, because deep down, you're not confused. You're waiting for the right moment. Let me tell you, this is it. This is the moment. The one you've been trained for through every delay, every disappointment, every inner battle. Now, rise and move. If you've made it this far, something inside you is already transformed, not because of my words, but because of your decision to listen, to receive, to believe. Transformation doesn't happen all at once. It happens choice by choice. And the fact that you've stayed with me through this journey tells me something powerful. You're ready for more. More clarity, more confidence, more purpose, and most of all, more responsibility. Because greatness is not given, it's earned. Not just with skill, but with integrity. The person you are becoming must be protected, nourished, strengthened daily, not with noise, but with focus. And you've proven that you have what it takes to lead yourself first. When I started this journey, I didn't have certainty. I had belief, and belief was enough. It carried me through storms, failures, rejection, and silence. And eventually, that belief turned into results, into legacy, into peace. And now, I hand that belief to you. You don't need all the answers. You just need to trust yourself enough to begin. This is not the end. This is the ignition. From this moment forward, walk like someone who remembers who they are. Speak with the voice of someone who has already arrived. Think with the mind of someone who knows the value of persistence, discipline, and identity. You don't need to perform. You need to align. Let your life reflect the truth you now carry. And when doubt whispers again, and it will, I want you to remember this. You didn't just listen to a video. You made a choice. You made a shift. You lit a fire. And fires, when protected, become unstoppable. Let this fire carry you through dark days. Let it remind you of the version of you that you've uncovered here. Keep that version alive. Protect it. Now write this in the comments. Final and full of power, I am already living it. Let those words echo in your mind. Let them anchor in your soul, because it's true. You are no longer on the sidelines of your life. You are in the arena, becoming, growing, leading, building. This is your time. This is your identity, and no one can take it from you. You are no longer becoming, you are now. You are the example, you are the energy, you are the evidence that transformation is possible. Walk boldly, love deeply, lead daily. And never forget, the habits that built your greatness are not temporary, they are eternal. You have everything you need. Now go live like it. The world is waiting.